I've been 4 times over here since they decided to have these trips to Normandy, and each time I've wondered about this grave where I knew my friend Ken Payne had been killed. It happened so silly. It was just something that should never have happened. And of course, we were just in the usual spots guarding the infantry, hoping that no tanks of the German tanks would come anywhere near us. But it was quite a normal, quietish day, really. We hadn't had a lot of trouble. And I only heard about it a couple of days later because I was in my own tank, and we were a troop of 4 tanks in the troop, and Ken was in the 2nd tank, and he was the lance bombardier in charge of actually firing his gun. And what happened on this particular occasion is that we were always being shelled, or I think the worst things that we hated, of course, was the mortars. And they had some usual horrid ones. But anyway, this was a silly thing that happened, that some shell or shrapnels or what have you dropped on the gun of Ken's tank, just on the muzzle, presumably. Breech was open and poor Ken was standing behind it, and this piece of shrapnel just came straight up the barrel and into his heart, straight into his heart, and there was hardly a mark on him. I must admit I wasn't there at the time, but nor did I see him again. I'll see his body, but all I know is that his body, obviously, will, like all places where the action is, the bodies are usually picked up at some time or other behind, and then taken for burial sometime, some other place. But in this particular instance, the villagers, unbeknown to even our own people, actually took his body and they brought him here to this cemetery, and obviously buried him somewhere in the cemetery at that time. Probably a few years later, that when our people decided that they want to open their own cemeteries and that all bodies should be taken from wherever they were originally buried. But apparently the people here, the wonderful villagers here, decided that they would not let him go, and refused. It's obvious that they had taken quite a number in, and so much so that eventually the cemetery has been made into a complete war cemetery, and it is in a beautiful spot here. All I can say is thank you very much for having brought me here to see it at last.
It's an honour.
Thank you.
Thank you.